This episode of Passing the Plate is sponsored by Storied Book Recipes from Storied. Welcome to Passing the Plate, the podcast that's all about food, traditions, and the incredible connections they create. I'm Ashley Covelli, the food writer and recipe developer behind Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen.
And I'm Lisa Lisson, the genealogist and family history expert behind Are You My Cousin? We are your guides on this flavor-packed adventure. We're not just talking about recipes. We're diving into family history, exploring new cultures, and preserving favorite recipes for future generations. In short, we're celebrating the stories and tastes that come with every bite.
So grab a seat at the table and let's head out on a journey of flavor, tradition, and connection. This is Passing the Plate, where every episode is a feast for the senses and a celebration of togetherness.
We've been podcasting here at Passing the Plate for 15 months now, and we thought it would be fun to dig a little deeper to help you get to know your co-host. So in episode 57, Ashley actually interviewed me, Lisa, about my interest in family history and culinary heritage and how I developed my interest in that. So in today's episode, we'll be digging into how Ashley Covelli became the food writer, recipe developer, and cooking class instructor we all know and love today.
Aw, thank you. I'm excited. I didn't have to prepare at all for this one.
I know, and I'm excited because I get to ask you some questions, and we know each other, I think, pretty well at this point, but I'm excited because I think I'm going to learn a little bit more about you as well. So
fun. I'm game.
All right. So now, one of the first questions, you asked me this, and I thought I enjoyed it so much, I wanted to ask you as well. Can you share a fun fact about yourself that we don't know?
That we don't know. Let me think. That we don't see. Now I see how this was tricky for you when you asked. I should have prepared for this particular one. I don't know if this is a fact that I've said on this podcast before. I've said it in one that I was interviewed by somebody else for, but I keep a running list in my phone and my notes app of potential trivia team names. They're just like mostly puns. You know, some people are like, or band, like funny band names. Most are just like silly puns that I come up with that make me laugh, and I put them in there. But it started with me and my friend Mallory. Our trivia team name is the Big Kapowski, which is a mashup of The Big Lebowski, which is a movie that both of us have a lot of familiarity with, and Kelly Kapowski, which was Tiffany Amber Thiessen's character on Saved by the Bell. So it kind of encompasses our pop culture knowledge. But I have things on there like Cirque du Soleil Moon Fry. So that's like if you I realize these might be obscure depending on the audience, but it's a Cirque du Soleil joke with Soleil Moon Fry, who played Punky Brewster, which was a childhood favorite show of both of ours. But yeah, I just have a bunch of really ridiculous things on there, and it makes me laugh. If I ever want like a little moment of levity, I'll go into my phone and just kind of laugh at the silly things I've come up with.
Well, I love that. I actually didn't know. I don't think I knew that you were a part of a trivia team, or maybe if I did, I may have forgotten.
It's just me and my friend. We used to do it more regularly pre-2020. So it's been a while since we've done it together. But so if I go do trivia with other people and we're trying to figure out a team name, I'll look through my list and see if anything
You're
hits.
Prepared.
I'm prepared. Always prepared.
All right. You need to hook up with my daughter because she is amazing at trivia.
I love trivia.
She does things that you do.
Awesome.
I'm not surprised. All right. So let me ask you this. How did you get into this whole, shall we say, food thing?
Yeah, food thing is a good term for it. So, I mean, I grew up cooking with my grandma when I would be at her house, like baking mostly. She and my grandpa let me do something which now as an adult, I'm like, what a waste of ingredients. But they would let me do this, like I would pretend like I had a cooking show, and I would take a big soup pot and I would like add in little like bits of condiments and stuff. I wouldn't actually turn the heat on, but I would mix things together, you know, like ketchup, and I'd put a bunch of water in there and dried mustard and parsley and whatever random things I would find in their cabinet, and I'd stir it together and I'd serve it to them as like a dish, and they'd pretend to eat it and love it. But now I'm like, that's so incredibly wasteful. But it was fun.
Love it.
So, you know, I always enjoyed, you know, we'd bake pies and cookies together, and it was always fun for me. I didn't do it a ton at home, but like always with my grandma. And then when I had my first real like in my field, which was graphic design job, it was kind of soul sucking for lack of a better phrase. I just it wasn't it wasn't like lighting me up and bringing me joy to be using like the same two brand colors over and over, and you know the the work I was doing wasn't creative, and I'm a creative. Like I went to art school, like I love creativity, so I was like, you know what? We have to eat. Me, I was like newly married. Like I might as well like, you know, share what I'm making with my family back home because I had moved out to New York from the Midwest. So I had a flip phone, like it wasn't a smartphone. I would just like try recipes. I would take a picture with my flip phone. I had a live journal that was like
Wow.
pre-blogger, so it was called Live Journal blog, and I would just post like I made this Rachel Ray recipe for whatever it was. Here's a terrible photo of it. This is what we thought of it, and me and my husband would rate them. So it'd be like, we give this 4 stars. We really didn't like this one. We give it 2 stars. 5 stars. This was amazing. And so it was just kind of a way to kind of grow my confidence in cooking things, stop being afraid of like splattering grease and stuff like that because I was a very big wimp. Um, and just, I always had fun arranging things on the plate because that's creative. Like that's like the way you present something. Because I could take a terrible dish and make it look good, but it might not taste good. So then fast forward a couple of years, I started creating my own recipes instead of just cooking other people's. And I had brands reach out to me and see like, hey, like there was I used to do a lot of work with Stonyfield, a yogurt brand. They'd be like, I love their products. Here, could you create recipes using our product? So I started doing some sponsored work like that, and then it just kind of went from there. And then so you said food thing, so I feel like I don't know what the end date is on that. This is the as easily as I can encompass the last like, gosh, it'll be that was in 2006 that I started it, and it's now, so this will be 18 years, 19 years,
Wow.
19 years this year. So,
Wow.
once I was pregnant with my son, um, I was making a good income on the side with this, like, we'll say food blogging. Um, and I decided to take it more full time once I was able to, um, once I had my son and was able to kind of stop doing the part-time graphic design. Once the money I was making from, ad revenue and all that was doing more than what my part-time design job was doing, I was able to move to that. And then when 2020 happened, I started doing virtual cooking classes. I had been doing some in person prior to that at local libraries. Um, and yeah, so it's just kind of evolved over the years. Do you think that's like a good kind of longer than a Cliff's Notes?
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. So, I love the story you told at the very beginning, though, about how you would put all the ingredients in a soup pot and mix it up. And, I could just because I mean, I've seen you. I've seen you cook live and done one of your classes, and I mean, that's it. That was little Ashley
Yeah. Yeah.
doing exactly what adult Ashley started doing. I think it's wonderful. Actually, I love that story.
Except grown up Ashley is like, okay, so now if when you take these trimmings and if you compost, you can put it in the compost. You can save them to try to make stock instead of like, let's just throw all this stuff in here. Like,
Okay, don't say that because now when I chop vegetables, because I read this on Ashley's website, I now save them in the freezer until I get a bag full, and now I'm
yes.
going to be and later today or tomorrow actually going is to be making vegetable stock, all because I learned about it on your
Listen,
website.
that makes me so happy because I feel like before you don't know. You know what I mean? Like before you
Right.
know, hey, this is useful and like you've already bought the ingredient, like you don't have to waste it. Same with like chicken, the bones and everything after you're done
Mhm.
with the roasted chicken, like you can use that to make bone broth or stock. Like there's so many great ways to utilize more, and I'm always happy to inspire that in other people without the pressure of you have to do this or
Yeah.
you're not a good cook. Like that's not it. Like just try, you know?
Yeah. So thank you for that tip. All right. So I have a question. You asked me this, and this was harder to answer than I thought it was. So I'm going to ask you. Who is one or two or three people that you would choose to have dinner with, would like to have a dinner with? Anybody. It could be living, could be,
Mhm.
dead. It could be
Yeah.
anybody, or even fictional if there's a character.
So I this person is still with us, and I would love to meet Jacques Pepin. If you aren't familiar with him, he's a very famous French chef that he's French, but he lives in the States, not terribly far from where I live. But he, I grew up watching his cooking shows on like PBS. He did some with
Mhm.
Julia Child. He just has such a great laid back, like he makes you feel like you can do it. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel afraid of what might seem like a fancy French dish. And he didn't I guess this actually, now that I'm thinking about it, kind of reflects like my style of teaching to cook is like I don't ever want you to feel intimidated and like, oh no, I forgot this thing. Is it not going to work out? Like I want you to be able to adapt in the kitchen. And he does that very well. And I used to watch his show, also one of his shows with my father-in-law. Um, and I think that there's some things that kind of remind me of each other, the two of them. And my father-in-law also spoke French too. Lived in Belgium for a while. So there was one episode in specific that I remember that the two of us were watching, and Jacques was adding wine to whatever dish, and he used the rest of the bottle of wine that he had, and he was like, if you run out of wine or you don't have it, that's no worry. You can just use a little Chateau faucet. And he took the glass over to the sink, to the faucet, and put water in the and it's like, that's fine. You know what I mean?
I
And it
love
just
that.
that it really stuck with me. And it was like, for those of you who don't know, I used to cook with my father-in-law all the time. And it was just like it was just such a moment. And it just yeah, I guess it really left an impression, his style with me, because some cooking shows are great, but they are intimidating, and some people probably enjoy that. I just always want to like lower the barrier of entry for people, so I think he did an amazing job of that, and he's an artist too, and um, does beautiful paintings, and yeah, so I feel like I would have a very good time having a conversation with him over a meal and some wine.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I hope,
Yeah.
and fingers crossed. I hope you get to, since he's up in that area. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that would be yeah, he's in Connecticut.
Ah,
I did go to a library had in the like maybe 2021 or something. They had a an event with him, like a Q&A for one of his books. And so I have it's autographed. I didn't get to meet him, but he was doing a Q&A during the session, and he did answer one of my questions. So I like almost talked to him. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that's cool.
yeah.
We're going to count that. We're
Yeah,
going to
that
count that.
counts.
This episode of Passing the Plate is sponsored by Storied Book Recipes from Storied.
You know what's almost as powerful as the taste of your grandma's apple pie? The handwritten recipe card that it came from. Those stained, faded recipe cards hold more than just ingredients. They tell so much more about your family's story.
I wish I'd asked my grandmother to write down her famous in our family recipe for her cornbread and her pecan pie so I could share those with my own children. Storied Book Recipes solves that problem precisely. The platform lets you easily preserve and share family recipes across generations.
With Storied Book Recipes, you can capture ingredients, steps, and the stories behind them, like how much liquid to add to that cornbread recipe or how to make the perfect pie crust.
You can digitize handwritten recipes, add photos of the finished dishes, and turn them into beautifully crafted, custom printed cookbooks. You can also share the stories privately with your family online.
Storied Book Recipes is part of the larger Storied platform, which helps you preserve family traditions and history, not just what's on your plate.
Our listeners get 20% off their first year when they visit storied.com/plate or use code PLATE at checkout. Don't let another family recipe disappear. Capture your food traditions with Storied Book Recipes. So, what is your favorite recipe that you have developed over the years?
Ooh. that I developed. So I guess the one that I would say that I developed that I'm the most proud of that I just that we eat a lot, and I know we've talked about it before on this podcast, is my broiler kebab recipe because it was based on my dad, who's Persian, and he's a great cook. It's based on his kebab recipe that's like he uses minced ground beef, but like grating onions and all this stuff, and it takes a while to put it together. So I came up with a version that comes together more quickly, and I actually like measure things and like so you can make them at home. It's not just like guessing, and it doesn't have to be done on an outdoor grill, and it's like a sheet pan situation, and because I developed it originally with ground beef like he did, but then I decided, we love ground lamb, so it works really beautifully with that. And then also trying to do like meatless options. It works really great with like a Beyond Meat, vegan ground meat. So just taking things that bring like comfort and flavor, but again, like feasible on a weeknight, and it like hits that craving.
Hmm.
And because I make that one very very often, my family loves it. It's great as leftovers. It freezes well, and so many people have now made it, and it's kind of like my family, a modern version of one of my family recipes has made it to a lot of people who might not have tried Persian food before. So that one's very special to me. Um, I actually was considering making it tonight because I'm like, I have some tomatoes that I need to use. I've got
Awesome.
ground meat in the
And
freezer.
well, I've actually made that one. It was the first time
Mhm.
I've ever made Persian food and actually made that recipe. And listeners, it is really delicious. My family loved it.
Uh,
And yeah, so yeah, and I do love that you brought that bit of your, that part of your family history
mm.
and can kind of share that with others through the food. And I loved it. I
I'm
would
so
highly
glad.
recommend that particular
And
one.
like full disclosure, I never lived with my dad. Like we've talked about this. I have a very weird family tree, or like it's got a lot of branches and like and starts and ends and whatever. So it's not like I lived with him and saw him cooking this all the time. It's just like I was able to kind of glean it from some of the things I'd seen when I would stay with him. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and a way to connect with
Mhm.
that part of your culture and that part of your
Yeah.
heritage.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent. So on your website or as you've, kind of developed your recipes over the years, do you have certain types of recipes that you prefer to create or that you prefer to work on? Is there a certain type of recipe or are you pretty eclectic across the board?
I feel like I'm pretty eclectic across the board because I I like I like to know how to make things, and sometimes I'm in the mood to make a complicated recipe to entertain with, and I'd love to show other people how to do that. And sometimes I'm like, my family needs to eat more vegetables and I don't need to spend an hour a night cooking. What's something kind of you know, quick and easy that I can do? I will say like in more recent years, I'm definitely leaning more into more vegetables. Like I still cook with meat and seafood and whatever, but like just trying to lean into to more plant-based things or or whole foods, like actual, not packaged things, while still being totally open to shortcuts when needed. Um,
Right.
so I mean, I do enjoy like deciphering, like if we go out to eat, we've talked about this in a previous episode, trying to decipher what what makes this restaurant dish really good and can I make that at home or something comparable. Um, yeah, I don't know that I have a particular favorite type. I just I'm my palate is open. I like exploring everything. So,
And I think that that makes it fun too. When I look at your recipes or I look at your website, if I need inspiration for dinner, because it does have it's such a wide variety. I can always
mhm.
find,
Yeah.
something that I want to do.
Well, and
So,
it's not necessarily like the quote best business decision for a food website because there's a lot of things to be said about like having your niche and like this is the recipe I go to because I'm on a whole or the website I go to because I'm on a whole 30 diet, or I'm a vegan, or I'm gluten free, or I'm pescatarian. So like those are very specific, but I feel like sometimes I'm cooking for people with those limitations and sometimes I'm not. So I kind of see it as a place to go to find anything,
Mhm.
anything you're in the mood for.
And what I like about that, and I know there is the real trend to niche down when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to food websites and things, but it's almost a niche of for when I think of your site, and as I've gotten to know you over the is you're a mom,
Mm-hmm.
you're working from home, you're balancing family and your work and your creation and the creative
Mm-hmm.
process behind all of what we do as
Yeah.
we run our websites and things. To me, that's kind almost a niche in itself, because that's why I or someone would go to your site is
Mm-hmm.
I want help from somebody like me who's experiencing
Ah.
the same kind of daily life in a
Yeah.
sense, because I have those same challenges as well. And so it's yes, we need more vegetables, so I need to, it's helpful to see that. Or I'm really in the mood to be creative in the kitchen. I want something a
Mm-hmm.
little more complicated. And so maybe I'll, pull something like that. So I actually like that it's a little broader.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. So kind of a niche that's not a niche,
Well, I
a
appreciate
niche
that
that's not a niche.
feedback very much, because I'm always like, yes, I like sharing what I like to eat and whatever, but my goal is to help people. So to help you, Lisa, or you, listener, to find something to cook for yourself,
Yeah,
for your loved ones, wherever you are, and who has the same amount of time and energy every single day consistently, Some days I need to
exactly.
throw something in the slow cooker and just leave it alone. Some days I'm like, you know what? I want to prep something that has like a couple of days lead time. I'm gonna spatchcock and brine a turkey, but like sometimes I just need a sheet pan thing. That's.
Right, right, exactly. All right. So it kind of leads into this next question, or kind of but you actually came up with this initial idea for the podcast of
Ah.
doing passing the plate. And listeners, if you we've probably shared, I think in my episode where Ashley interviewed me, is that we've known each other obviously for a number of years, and we had always wanted to work together,
Mm-hmm.
but we really couldn't quite come up with how should we do that. Here I was over deep into the genealogy and family history, and Ashley's obviously in the food world. How could we really marry those together? And
Mm-hmm.
so as we were putting our heads together, Ashley really actually came up with the whole idea of the podcast and this whole culinary blending the culinary heritage together. So I have to ask you, what is this topic of culinary heritage? Can you tell me what it means to you and to your
Ah.
family?
Yeah, so for me, I hadn't heard the term culinary heritage before before you brought it up, because I know that's a big area that you're into with your genealogy research. Um, for me, it's kind of what foods and flavors have brought you to where you are today. So what from your past, it doesn't have to be your family. It could be like, you know, one of your childhood friends, their family always made this dish and it made you love chicken thighs or something like that. Or, something that really stuck out to you as when you were growing up in your formative years and it kind of influenced how you cook or spend time in the kitchen now, or the things that you prefer to eat. Um, so yeah, just kind of your journey, like the journey of your history and I mean, yes, it can involve like your ancestors and like the family recipes that get passed down, um, or even like for me, knowing that I have family on the other side of the world that I can kind of communicate with. Some of them I can't. That it just the language barrier doesn't allow it. But I can take the heritage of that part of the world and like do my own research. So I can look up Persian recipes, Persian cookbook, learn more about the traditions and like why certain dishes are certain ways, and that kind of informs, you know, how I cook today.
I love that. I love that. And I'm so excited that you did obviously come up with this idea and then we figured it all out along the way, right?
Yeah, no, food and family are so connected because I mean, it's just sitting at the table with your loved ones. There's just like it just hits differently. It's just like a different type of bonding. And so like we knew there was a way that we could connect those things together, but yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right. Food and family really go hand in hand.
Hmm.
I think it is actually at that dinner table that, or over a cup of coffee,
Hmm.
even if it's just a cup of coffee. And it's a time when people tell stories, and
Yeah.
that's when conversations happen. And I think that's, what really, that's the perfect meeting point of food and heritage. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, Ashley, thank you so much for giving us a look behind the scenes at your world. And I would love for you to share with us and share with the listeners where we can find you online.
Oh, sure. I'm all over the place online. My website is bigflavorstinyKitchen.com. On social media, I'm at Big Flavors. And if you want to see my events calendar on my website, I do virtual cooking classes. That's at bigflavorstinyKitchen.com/events. And I'm always happy to chat with people about food in the DMs or, email, whatever. I do have a newsletter. If you go to my website/subscribe, you can get a weekly dose of food and all things delicious for me. Sometimes it's behind the scenes things. I vary it from week to week. I recently shared something about cold pizza, which is this like legendary thing that I had heard about from where my husband went to college. So just some little tidbits, stuff like that.
Wonderful. You can find the links to the resources that Ashley mentioned in this episode at passingtheplate.org/60. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Passing the Plate. We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of food, traditions, and the amazing connections they create.
As always, it's been a pleasure sharing these delicious stories with you. Remember, food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect the dots between our past, present, and future.
And until next time, happy eating, happy connecting, and pass the plate. Head to passingtheplate.org/podcast for show notes.